Welcome back, folks, to another episode of It's About Payroll. We got our guest came on nice and early today, so he gets to do the intro with us, and Walt is going to introduce him for us.
Today, we're joined by the one, the only, I was going to throw out like the myth, the legend, the man, a payroll leader whose career is a masterclass in building and transforming payroll operations, Jim Kohl. He's joining us today to share his journey, which is both inspiring and practical. He's someone who has literally built teams from the ground up, creating structure where there was none, and leading with a vision for accuracy, compliance, and the employee experience, right? So his work with embedded payroll reflects a forward-looking perspective on where the industry is heading, and his passion for payroll extends beyond the office. He brings his storytelling and creativity into the profession, even through comics that connect payroll to everyday life. We're excited to dig into Jim's origin story, the lessons he's learned along the way, and why he believes payroll is so much more than just numbers. Jim, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Wow. What a welcome. Walt, I can't thank you enough for the kind words.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
They're
man.
all true. I appreciate you so much because you've been such a blessing to us. I don't know how else to put it. You've offered your help to us without wanting anything in return. So I'm just so excited to get to talk to you, to get to do this discussion with you and get to know a little bit more about you, Jim.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on the show.
Yeah, I mean, right back at you guys. Big fan of the show. Truly
you.
enjoy everything you guys have brought to payroll
That means a lot to me.
and such diversity in the way your shows go. You know, you have some that get really deep on like specific topics, some that are much more, kind of outside of the payroll universe,
Yeah.
some that are just hilarious.
Yep.
So it's great.
That's
It's like a
awesome.
variety hour, and I think you guys crush
Yes.
it.
I love.
So
Oh man, that's awesome.
honored
Thank you,
to be
man.
here.
Yep.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we're gonna get into our news. So I'm gonna start mine off.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
so
are we doing a full podcast or are we furloughed? I thought everybody was taking off like the IRS.
oh,
Oh my gosh. And that's so
oh my
funny
God.
because when you mentioned that in the like as we were prepping, I was like, what is he talking about? That furlough, that's old news. Like, Jim, what are you talking about? And then it's like the next day or something, I saw it. I was like, holy crap, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild.
Well, look, why
Yeah.
don't you start us off? Because I don't even know the full story. Tell us what's going on.
Sure, yeah. So, the IRS is furloughed until Congress can pass a spending bill. They had about 5 days of reserve funds to operate at a standard capacity. And I think that expires tomorrow, which, depending on when this airs, will be Tuesday, October 7th. So at that point, we're going to start to lose different IRS services that, payroll folks
That's
are
nuts.
used to relying on. So it's going to be hard to resolve notices. It's going to be hard to get somebody on the phone. Sorry, harder than normal
I was
to get
gonna
somebody
say
on the phone. Yeah.
that explains why I hung up the other day. I had to call him the other day for something, and I was just like, click. They had me
Yeah.
on hold forever. Wow.
But this won't come as a surprise. They'll still be accepting money. No
Of
problem. That'll go
course.
right through.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, that is insane.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I always feel like they do it right. I mean, I guess it's not a coincidence. At the end of the year, there's that tax cliff, and are they going to get funded or not? And I'm like, folks, what are we talking about here? Like, how does this not happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. It's
crazy.
wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
yeah, thanks. Walt, what you got, man?
So mine is not payroll related. It's about, because we bought Jim has a comic I know that he had produced out that was really, really great. I read some, and we have Payla, who's Jim has been very helpful with. So mine is about a comic book restorer who did some shadiness, right? So he was sentenced to 6 years in prison after he stole more than $300,000 worth of comic books and restoration fees from dozens of customers nationwide. So the case was initially reported in August 2024 following an investigation by the Lynn County Sheriff's Office in Oregon.
Wow.
So just a little bit more details. So Michael, I think that was his name. Michael, the cellist, owned a business called Hero Restoration. He took customers' valuable comic books for restoration services, charged large fees, and never returned the comic books.
Wow.
So in total, he stole from 20 victims from 11 states. So he was sentenced to 6 years in prison in December of 2024. So, yep.
Holy crap.
That's wild. That's so scary. I don't know if you're collectors in any of like the, baseball cards or comic books or things like
Used
this.
to be as a
But one of the big trends is getting your product graded.
Yes. I just learned about that.
You-
Yes.
Yeah. But how much trust do you have to take this, like in some cases,
Yep.
priceless book
Yep.
and just mail it?
Yep.
Just like, I hope I get this back.
And you so it's
Oh my
okay.
God.
So, and I now got to tell you my story. So I took my son was into. He's like, he's a kid. He's doing the collecting thing or whatever. So I took him to like a collecticon here in Florida in Fort Lauderdale, and they had. That's how I learned about these graders. And I was just like, what do you mean now? And they like, oh, you got to send it to us. We'll grade it and we'll send it back. And I was like, hmm. And then there are other services that will do it for you, that will manage the process for you. And I'm like, wait, I got to add another person in the middle of this process. So it's really crazy, but like that's the way you ensure you get your money's worth for the product, because if it's not graded, for some of these folks at the collecticon, they wouldn't even want to look at your stuff unless it was graded.
Wow.
Yep.
I had no idea that was a
Yeah.
thing.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, big business.
Yeah. I saw somebody
Wow.
sell I think it was a Tua card. This guy had a rookie Tua card, graded, framed and everything. And he sold I saw the transaction go down. Dude bought it from him right there. And yeah, it just kind of, it expedites the process. I get it. There are websites to like look up to see how much your stuff is worth. And all of them are a subscription now. There's no free websites for it. You got to pay, my mom is always like, you have stuff, you got so much there, because I have boxes of cards. I was just showing my son my comic books, but all of them are aged. Like some of them are in good condition, but all of them, the paper has browned and tanned and whatnot. But she's like, I'm like, Ma, it's gonna take me so much time to go through this. Like, if one of these kids get ambitious enough, I'll pay them to do it. But my kids are lazy. They don't want to make money. They got it too easy. So
Wow.
let me share mine, bringing it back to payroll. We're turning our attention to Zimbabwe, where payroll fraud has reached an alarming levels. Audits have uncovered over 75,000 ghost employees. Fake
Wow.
employees collecting real paychecks in the public sector. Of course, government, right? Despite multiple probes, including one as recent as 2020, thousands of non-existent workers are still being paid, especially in the education sector, where tens of thousands of questionable salaries remain. These phantom payments drain millions from vital services like schools, hospitals, and infrastructure, fueling inflation, deepening corruption. It's a powerful reminder to payroll professionals everywhere: strong audits, biometric verification, transparent systems aren't optional. They are absolutely essential. So,
Wow.
because me and Walt were talking about that, it was a while ago, but we were like, there's really, the bigger you get, there's no way to like ensure that you don't have ghost employees. There's no way to guarantee it. Like, think of a Walmart, right? I think they're the
Yeah.
biggest employer in the States. How the heck do they confirm that? Like, how does the payroll person know there's not one or two ghost employees out there at least? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, like you said, I mean, yeah, you have to audit it, 100%. And
Yep.
I think what a lot of banks do is, the same person can't count out every night, or it's like every other night or something like that. So like there's always like a secondary check
Oh, really?
to make sure. So like what I would imagine is with Walmart, probably no one person can hire any single employee. or something along those
Right.
lines,
Oh,
where
it has to be
you're
like
always getting that.
okay, I get what you're saying. It's gotta be a few
Yeah.
people in the line.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something, like a system that we had when I worked for a PEO. Like it would be just the cross-functional or cross-audit type of situation, right? So somebody would enter in a new hire, and then but somebody would always check their work to look at it, to make sure that socials weren't wrong or anything like that. So that was a way that we kind of prevented like any ghost employees or any errant data from going into this. So that might be a way too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's always something, man. It's crazy with the ghost employees. So now, enough of that. Jim, tell us about you, man. What's your origin story? How'd you get into payroll? How'd you get to this point?
Yeah, I love that you call it the origin story because that just to me it feels very very comic book centric.
Yes.
So have always enjoyed that. How did I get into payroll? Well, I think Walt at this point is a unicorn, right? You're the only person who wanted to get into
That
payroll.
I know. Yep.
No, there was somebody else we had on the show, Brian, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the guests.
Well, I
So
argued
you
that Kira
that person.
kind of chose it.
Yeah.
I argued Kira
Yeah.
chose it. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's the one we're talking about. Well, but yeah.
There was somebody else, but
Can't
I
think
hate
about it, right? Yeah.
I guess I'm a unicorn.
Yeah. So on the opposite side of things, somebody who didn't necessarily choose payroll. I was an English major in college. I went to Rutgers, so born and
Northeast.
raised
Yes,
in New
sir.
Jersey. Yeah, the Northeast. Yeah. And when I graduated, I didn't necessarily have a plan right out of college.
Yep.
Who
Who
needs
does?
that, right? Started working at a comedy club,
What?
and yeah, I did stand up, but I wasn't.
Oh my
I wasn't
gosh.
working doing stand up. I was waiting tables, which led to the back office, and
Okay.
ultimately led to the count outs and payroll piece of things.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. And I needed to get health benefits, as you
Mhm.
get older, and one of
Yep.
those things that
That's what got me going. Yep.
you find important. And a friend of my sister's said, "Oh, Paychex is always hiring." That was like, I guess, one of their kind of slogans back then. And so I applied to Paychex, and I was like, "This is crazy. I don't know if I'm going to get a job here." And they used to have a math test back then. I don't know if they
What?
still do it, but yeah, you had to pass a math test, and you got interviewed, and then ultimately they called me and said, "Hey, you got the job, but if you do take this job, you have to go up to Rochester for 2 weeks." That was part of their training, and so I accepted the job, but origin story. So I will say my dream for myself was always to be a comic book artist, right? So I've always wanted to do that, and that's been something that has been sort of a side career of mine. But I never put all of my eggs in one basket. So, needed a real job to put food on the table and joined Paychex. Incredible training program. Like,
Wow.
yeah, top notch.
Oh, wow.
It was about a month at the branch. They trained you on everything. And then 2 weeks you went up to Rochester, which is, their base of operations. And they train you for those 2 weeks. And at the end of it, there's a test. And if you fail it, you can't work at Paychex, right? So
Damn.
like high stakes,
Holy cow.
Wow.
Yeah, it was intense, but it was a great training, and even today, like 20 years later, like it is without a doubt like where all of my training has been built from, right? They
Wow.
just put this like deck plate, like foundational understanding of payroll that I've been able to build on my entire career.
That's amazing.
Wow. That's amazing. That reminds me of the A school that I went to after boot camp in the military. We went to Meridian, Mississippi after I passed boot camp for the Navy, and they just taught us payroll for like a month and a half.
Wow.
So we were just there, and they were just like letting us know about the ins and outs of payroll for the military. And so, like, yeah, I can definitely identify with that story. Jim, you have such an amazing origin story. I love hearing everyone's origin story because it's so unique,
Yep.
so different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing.
Thanks.
Have you ever been to a webinar where the topic was great, but there wasn't enough time to ask questions or have a dialogue to learn more? Well, welcome to HR and Payroll 2.0, the podcast where those post-webinar questions become episodes. We feature HR practitioners, leaders, and founders of HR, payroll, and workplace innovation and transformation, sharing their insights and lessons learned from the trenches. We dig in to share the knowledge and tips that can help modern HR and payroll leaders navigate the challenges and opportunities ahead. So join us.
So besides that training that you had with Paychex, what else about payroll kept you in the industry?
Yeah. I love that question. I think what I liked most about it and why I continue to still be passionate about it is it's just there's such a connective tissue with payroll to who we are as humans and everything that we do. The first time I think it was one of my sisters asked me about her paycheck, I was like, "Oh wow, what I do matters, what I've learned matters." Prior to that, I was just kind of like, this is just, a job to get through things. So really understood, how things were calculated, how W-2s are created, all of this connective stuff, right? What withholdings meant, like it inspired me because again, it's connected to everything we do, right? It's important that people get paid and we facilitate that. And I just think that that's so exciting and it's cool to talk about. And I mean, honestly, you just talked about phantom employees, right? If you don't think that that's cool, I don't know, I think there's a lot of cool things that happen in the payroll world that a lot of folks don't necessarily know about or understand. I was on a podcast with Nick Day
Oh, yeah.
a few years ago, and I was describing payroll as sort of Men in Black,
No doubt.
right? Where when things go right, it's great. Nobody notices. The whole world is just moving along, but there's this whole underworld of aliens that exist and all these crazy problems that we're
No
solving,
doubt.
with
That's
like
cool.
seconds
I like that.
left.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's
And
it definitely gets.
things happen. We got to clean them up quickly and then, do the little blinker and people move on, right?
No doubt.
I love that, man.
And that's payday. The blinker is payday because if your pay hits right, everything's forgotten.
Everything's forgotten.
Everything's forgotten.
Perfect. Yep.
So
Oh my God.
you had the unique challenge of building payroll teams from scratch. Where do you even start when there's nothing in place?
Yeah. So I've done that basically twice. So, I spent a long time at Paychex. I got to learn, on different systems there before first moving to a company called Namely,
Cool. Yep.
which was HR, payroll, and benefits,
Okay.
for
I remember them.
the mid-market. Yeah. Super, super cool company. It was exciting. That was really my first kind of introduction to what startups were and like the startup world.
Mhm.
And, you quickly realize like not everybody knows everything and there's a lot of unanswered questions. And so the way I kind of started things there was brute force. It was just like, I can put in the time to figure things out. You advocate to hire folks. Thankfully, we did have a few temps that I was able to work with. Few people became full-time.
Nice.
And we really took this like, fledgling payroll idea and we're able to build up an incredible team.
Wow.
One of the things that was right out of the gate, one of the things I knew I wanted to do is bring on somebody who I trusted. I think you see that model in a lot of different roles. I think people just feel very comfortable. But in the payroll world specifically, there's such a vast understanding of what payroll is and how people approach payroll, right? Somebody could have run payroll for 20 years and it could have just been from one company.
Yep.
And they might not know a lot about payroll.
Yep.
But when you know somebody who's good at payroll and they really understand, the foundational pillars and can get through any problem, like that's somebody you want on your side.
For
So
sure.
one of my goals was bringing in somebody I trusted so that, we could really build a team.
Nice.
Awesome. So let me ask you another question, Jim. When you were building that team and for somebody that may be in that situation now that has to build a team from scratch, how do they balance compliance and process design when you're trying to build that strong, motivated team culture?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's a tough one. I think where I would start is I advocate for everybody in the payroll community to have a strong network.
Mm.
I think you two are probably the biggest advocates I've seen. You're building a community constantly. You're always talking about community, and that's so important
Yep.
to know that you have people that you can trust, people that you can rely on, and resources. When you get into a jam, hey, I don't understand. I don't know what to do here. I've never kind of run into this problem. And if you have that community of somebody that you can reach out to and run it by them. I think the early days, like your focus really is just getting through the day, right? How do I get to tomorrow in the best way possible? The minute you get breathing room, it's reviewing, hey, what could I have done better? How could I have,
Yes.
how could I have made this faster? I think also having your network is important, but knowing what resources you're going to use, right? Whether you trust Bloomberg or whether you trust, Payorg or whatever resource you want, if you're only in one state, it's super easy to just,
Yeah.
stay in tune to that state, and put out listeners for their changes and whatever's, going on. If you're not a part of a local chapter, I think of Payorg, I think there's a lot of great information, and folks that are putting out info there as well. I don't think there's a silver bullet,
Nope.
Walt. I think it's a lot of little habits that build up over time, and you can't do too much at once, right? That's why I think it's always starting with how do I get to tomorrow the best way possible, and continuing to compound, good habits,
Yeah.
and learning when you make mistakes, right? They're gonna happen,
Yeah.
and if you don't have grace with yourself, it's gonna be a really hard path.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you for saying that. What's that saying that I don't know if I'm saying it verbatim, but you can't eat an elephant in one
Oh
bite or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
That's probably
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Right.
So, what are the biggest mistakes organizations make when standing up payroll function for the first time?
Sure, sure. I think sometimes going back to that sort of Men in Black thinking, I
Mhm.
think a lot of companies assume it's much easier than it actually is,
Yeah,
right? I
for
don't I
sure.
don't think
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that a lot of companies appreciate that there's this really strong emotional element to payroll. Again, because you're making sure people are paid, they have
Yep.
money
Yep.
to put food on the table, put a roof over their head. And you also have this legislative kind of like filter on everything that's being
Oh
done.
yeah.
And then you have industry specific rules and regulations. And then you have the way certain providers do things, which people interpret as like it has to be done a specific way.
Mhm.
So I think you end up creating this sort of labyrinth that, to Walt's point, when people get paid, all of that goes away, right? Oh, it works. Everybody got paid. How hard could it be? And I think when you don't respect how difficult it can be, I think sometimes that's where you get in trouble, right? Oh, this will be easy. This is just something we can do, overnight, right? Or, this
Yeah.
is who I want to go with for this one specific feature, not really taking a step back. And, I know you've spoken to Anita before, but
Oh yeah.
her book, Your Next Payroll, that really breaks down everything you need to think about before standing up payroll or even starting to think about it,
You gotta
right?
send her this clip because I told her it's more than just picking. I was like, your book tells people how to do it right.
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you made me think of something. I was going through notes, like old. I've taken notes for a long time, and I'm going through an old notebook. I was cleaning out a drawer, so I was like, "Oh, wow, my little notebook," and I went through it,
Yeah.
and it's about 10 years old, and it's right, and it kind of marks, it kind of sets the mark of when I really made a pivot into taking my career seriously, right? Because
Oh, I
I've
love
Mm.
it.
I've always been an entrepreneur spirit since I was a kid, like, right, but I always thought it was outside of payroll. And at some point I
Mm.
said, wait a minute, I'm good at this. What maybe this is it. So I was writing notes and I found these notes and things and I wrote the ABCs of payroll, and it was accountability, best practices, compliance.
Love it.
right? And I was like, holy shit, I knew some stuff. I knew some stuff back then, it was crazy. But
Yeah.
well, okay, we're gonna switch gears. It's
Sure.
embedded payroll now, right? And this is kind of with check. Is it check or checks?
It's Check
Check
Technologies.
technologies. All right,
Technologies.
because that was
Yeah.
new to me.
Okay.
Like when we, and by the way, we haven't said it yet, but we met Jim through Payla, the panda, and Walt
That's
put out
right.
Payla,
Love
and
Payla.
oh my gosh, Payla has been getting gets more engagement than anything we've done in 3 years. And I was like, and Walt just hit the creativity of it, right? And that's why like we have to lean into what we do and what we love, because
Yeah.
Walt just came up one day as I'm doing this. I was like, all right, no problem. And then boom, it hit, right? And then Jim reached out to us and said, well, guys, you need help, let me know. And we were like, well, crap, I hope he doesn't charge a lot. Let's talk to
Yeah.
him. And Jim is like, no, hey. And then that's how we learned about your creativity and do we talk about that? Yeah, we're gonna talk about yourself in a second. And that's how
Yeah.
we got to know Jim, and he's been helping and guide us, and would make Payla better. So, but through that, it was embedded payroll came up, and I was like, "What is that?" So you go ahead.
Yeah. So piggybacking off of what Brian just
Let's
said,
go. Yeah.
like we're hearing more and more about embedded payroll, right? How do you explain that to someone who hasn't heard about it in payroll or somebody on the outside of
Yeah.
payroll?
Yeah. Awesome. So I think embedded payroll, probably the best way to, kind of elevator pitch this. It does three things: calculates taxes, moves money to employees on payday,
Ooh.
and it does all of tax filing, quarter end, year end. Right?
Oh, okay.
But what
Okay.
about net? It doesn't calculate gross to net?
Yeah, it
Oh, okay.
calculates gross to
Okay.
net. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I'm glad you broke that down. Yeah, calculates gross to net and then pays out net pay on check date for all employees. So those are like the three kind of pillars behind embedded payroll.
Okay, that makes sense.
And why do that, right? Embedded payroll allows SaaS businesses or companies that are connected or have some sort of parallel to the payroll world to add payroll without, how did people do it in the past? They either bought
Yep.
an existing payroll system,
Or build it.
they built it themselves, which is incredibly hard.
Yeah, don't
Yeah,
do that. I don't
just shake
recommend
your head,
that.
right? That's
I
exactly
don't
how most
recommend
people
that.
approached it.
Exactly.
Or they would kind of take the easy way out, right? And they would just say, this is our payroll provider of choice, right? They're a
Right.
partner.
Just partner with
with
somebody.
some-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that was the way people did it before embedded payroll. Embedded payroll comes around, and now you're able to add everything that I just said into your product natively, right? So that it shows that you now offer payroll, and it's not some Frankenstein connection,
Wow.
right? You are offering payroll directly.
That's pretty cool.
I forget who you were talking to about trucking payroll a couple episodes ago.
Ritzema, I believe his name is.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's a great example where somebody has an idea for, hey, payroll's not being supported at Big Red or Big Blue, right? We want to do payroll for our industry the right way,
Mhm.
right? And if he had created sort of a SaaS product, right, for capturing per diem or for capturing trucker hours that everybody loved, he could build on top of Check and offer payroll directly for the entire trucking industry.
Amazing.
This is William Tincup, and I'd like to direct you to a wonderful limited series podcast that Ryan and I recorded live at the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. We sat down with 20 recruiting and TA leaders from around the world to hear what today's best recruiters are doing to stay sharp, stay relevant, and stay ahead. It's called The Talent Shift. You'll love it. You'll find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Listen, like, review, share. Do you?
I think he went out and did it himself, if I'm not mistaken.
I
he
forget what
probably
he did, really.
kind of built it himself.
Yeah.
I think you did, yeah.
But so Check has been around for 6 years, right?
Oh
We're
my
the
gosh. Really
first
new.
embedded payroll platform.
Re-
I was the first employee at Check.
Holy cow.
So we were building from nothing. It was super, it's been absolutely an incredible journey.
That's
And
awesome.
we've seen industry specific payroll popping up like never before,
Yes.
right? We have a coffee shop partner, right?
Oh,
They
that's awesome.
created a product called Dripos specifically for coffee shops that has payroll integrated into it, right?
That's
Supported
freaking
Wow.
by
cool.
Check. Yeah. And there's so many other industries that now we're allowing payroll to exist specifically for that industry, which is super exciting. And I know you
Heck
guys
yeah.
have been talking about that forever.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Yes, we have. Because it's needed, right? And we actually do you wanna say what you just typed here? Because I thought
Right.
about it.
No, go ahead. Well,
One of the things is because me and Walt has spent a lot of time in education. Education could use that because it's always kind of, because all the big folks will tell you, yeah, we can do that, but they can't. They
Sure.
can't, and that's the sad part about it. So that's really cool. Does Check
Yeah.
share is that information shared in any way? Like, hey, we drive these industries, because I would love to know, right? Like, just
We
curiosity.
actually get surprised sometimes
Ooh,
by partners who come to us and say, we think that payroll would be really great in our industry and hadn't even thought about that.
of course
That's,
not.
that was
Yeah,
really exciting. Yeah.
yeah. That's
Um,
because it's
wow.
because
you
it's
mentioned education. We have a company called Playground who runs childcare management software
mm,
and they have payroll integrated in it,
there
so
you go.
really, really exciting
Wow.
partners. Yeah.
That nugget. Yep. And
Awesome.
yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunity a lot of places because it's like we tell folks probably all the time, and we teach payroll. I tell the folks in those presentations, like, you know on top of what I'm saying here, there's probably things that I don't know about that's in your business or industry that's nuanced. So
Mhm.
you got to adjust a bit for that and add those things in it too, right? And even just like in new companies, when we talk about it a lot, like you got to be with a company for like 18 months to 2 years before you figure out all the nuance, right? Some of the things are annual, some of the things are every now and then, right? And it's like, oh yeah, this happens every few, it's like, oh well, thanks. So
Yeah.
it takes a while, really. That onboarding really, takes a while. And I've had an HR leader that said onboarding should be about a year or something like that, because, and I really like really resonated with that because it's true for payroll. When you're a payroll pro and you're in a new company, who knows what's coming up? And especially if you don't get a good playbook,
Let's
right? A good
start over.
good knowledge transfer, which is rare
Yeah.
because usually it's like, oh, I need a new payroll person because my last one just walked out on me. You know what I mean? And it's like never get trained into you could work with the last, but no, that doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love to see. I'm gonna go down rabbit holes with this industry specific stuff. But all right, what is
Yeah. Have fun. No, it's good. It's a good space.
so in your role, how does embedded payroll change the relationship between employees, employers, and payroll pros? That's a good one. That's
Yeah. Great question.
yeah.
So employees still get paid, right?
Yep.
They're most important, right?
Yep.
That's always the goal.
That's the end game.
Um, yeah, the companies themselves, they're running payroll through a more integrated product, right? So whatever partner of Check that they've been using that software to track hours, to track timesheets, to track, job costing, whatever they're focused on, however their tips, whatever it is that they're focused on, they now have integrated payroll into their software. So the company is working directly with that customer, right? The payroll provider that they're comfortable with. Like, oh, you do our timesheets, now you do our payroll. This is
This
wonderful.
is
We
great.
love this.
Right.
We don't have to download your timesheets and then
Oh,
upload them into
yes.
Big Red, right?
Yes.
We don't have to worry about that. And then behind the scenes, Check, who powers our partner, we're there to support them, right? For the really hard things that come up. We help train them in the payroll world.
Okay.
We notify them of upcoming holidays, changes that are happening, right?
Okay.
Ohio just increased their withholding tables, right? So letting our
Jeez.
our partners know what changes are happening in the payroll world, things that they need to be aware of and start communicating out. Year end is already here,
Oh, we're
right?
there. Yeah.
So we're already putting a huge training in place, letting our partners know, hey, here's the year end playbook,
Yep.
right? Here's how you're going to want to approach it. Here's what you're going to start to hear from your customers. Get ready.
Yep.
Wow. Awesome. So in your opinion, Is embedded payroll a disruptor, an enabler, or maybe a bit of both?
Wow. Good question. I think I'm gonna take the easy way out, and I think I am gonna say it's
Both.
a little bit of both. You know, I really do. I can remember back in my early days at Paychex, I would remember salespeople running up to me at the end of the month, and they would be like, "Hey, can we support this union payroll?" And I'd be like, "We can, but it's not gonna be great, right? There's gonna be
Mm,
several workarounds for them to get what,
Mhm.
they're looking for." Or, Brian, you brought it up, educational services,
Mhm.
right? We never really supported them well, but, like, we would try. So in that sense, embedded
We
payroll
can tell.
has yeah, in that sense, embedded payroll has, disrupted the industry by creating more industry-specific payroll providers than ever before in the history of payroll.
That's free.
So that's really exciting. It enhances the employee's experience, the customer's experience because they're getting that integration of running their business and running their payroll on one platform. And in terms of being an enabler, right? At the end of the day, it is still an outsourced payroll product, right? So in that sense, it continues, a strong tradition, but like I said, it disrupts it in the fact that it's opening up industry-specific payroll.
mm,
It could be so many things too, because you said it's still outsourced, but if
Yeah,
somebody could bring it in-house technically if they already have, right, the something to build it on and they wanted to provide their like just for themselves, right?
they could. Yeah, technically, I don't
Technically,
see why somebody couldn't do that.
right. I mean, I don't know if they would want to, but I
I don't
mean,
know if the juice would be worth the squeeze, but
correct.
sure, yeah,
Oh
why not?
gosh, it depends on the leader. Let me tell you, because I had a HR leader the one time
True.
that was like, "Let's just build a time and attendance for ourselves," and I was like, "Huh?" And
Wow.
but I was all for it because we had the resources, right?
Yeah,
I was able to work with the IT guy, and we did it. We did it. I mean, I don't know if they still have it, but we definitely built something that was working, and wasn't a complicated workforce, and just needed in and out. But we did it, and people would be like, "Why are you doing it?" "Well, my boss said he wanted it. I can deliver. Let's do it." I was all up
yeah.
for it. So let's switch gears. So to the creativity part of it, right?
all right,
What
fair enough.
what like tell us about that part, and I guess like how did you end up doing both and serving that, because you said you wanted to be always into your goal was to get into comics, but you had to get a job, you got stuck in payroll, and then
Yeah,
you some way you did some things. So you published a book, you've done comic, right? Tell us about that.
that's right, yeah. So it was something that, I've been drawing since, I could hold a crayon, and have continued to do it, the entire time. Um Right when I got out of college, I started publishing a comic strip through the college newspaper and a couple nightlife magazines, and I did that for a few years.
Nice.
Super fun. I love seeing my artwork published.
Yep.
It feels validating.
Ab-
I wish people wouldn't think that that's the only way that you could be validated for being creative. I think people should always put stuff out there, but I did appreciate seeing my work be published. Did that for a while, and that actually led me to in 2015, I got connected to the owner of a brewery who knew of my comic strips in the nightlife magazines
Oh, that's awesome.
and said, "Hey, would you like to draw a beer label?" And I was like, "Why not? How cool would that be?" Yeah. So I ended up drawing a beer label, and I've done that for the last 10 years. I've basically drawn beer labels here and there for different breweries. I mean, I've probably done about 300
Oh,
labels over the last
dang.
10 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Do you have a portfolio like online of all your work?
I do. I have an Instagram.
Oh man, come on now.
Yeah, called Kohl Artwork. So Kohl Artwork. My last name artwork.
Okay.
The beer labels were, fun and, I did enjoy doing that, but I really loved drawing comic strips. And so 3 years ago, I created a comic strip and I was finally like, "You know what? Let me integrate my work with my passion. And that was where I created Humanoid Resources, which
Ha.
is robots and aliens in the
Yeah.
distant future, dealing with the same problems we have today in payroll, in hiring, in HR, you name it. So I started doing that, and my theory was, you know what? Let me draw a bunch of these comic strips, and I'll submit them to. I don't know if you know how newspapers work, but they have syndicates, right? So every comic strip that's printed is owned by, there's like 4 or 5 syndicates that
Oh.
exist, right? It's like King Feature
Yeah.
Syndicate, United
Oh,
Features,
no, I
something
didn't
like
know
that.
that.
Yeah, so like every comic's owned by different syndications. So I was like, you know what? Let me do enough comics and I'll send it into the syndicate and, see if I get accepted. And, they need, I think it's 6 weeks worth of content. So I sent in 42 strips for them and I had created like 60 strips. And I was like, what are the best 42? Asked some of my
Wow.
friends and whittled it down. And I had a really good submission I was proud of. And I sent it in, and in like an hour, it came back and it was like, you're not what we're looking for.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. But that was fine. I was like, you know what? How long are newspapers going to be around anyway? Maybe I'm kind of barking up an old tree.
Fair.
Yeah.
But I like doing the comics so much that I just kept doing it, and I ended up with a little over 90 strips. And I was like, what should I do with these comics? And I was like, you know what? It'd be fun to write a book that has the comics connected to different concepts of work and payroll and onboarding. And so I created a book called 30, 60, 90, and it's
Mhm.
got 90 comic strips in it. And it's all about, starting a new job, right? And, I kind of share a lot of different like life lessons that help me. Brian, you were talking about that day that you decided that you wanted to be good at your job. Like I talk about that. Like, if you're going to be doing a job, be the best you can. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to stand up or to write or to present. Because the more you put yourself out there, the more opportunities I think are out there for people. And so I created this book with just little like nuggets of life advice, and then of course the comics with it. And that was just so much fun to put out, and I got a lot of really great feedback from it.
That's
Awesome.
awesome. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
gonna put the
Yeah.
link to the Amazon in our
Thank you.
show
I
notes.
appreciate
Yeah, heck
that.
yeah.
I'm working on the second book. It's almost
Yes,
done. Probably
yes.
either end of this year, early next year. We'll see.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you
Yeah.
share what it's gonna be about?
Yeah. So this one's going to be called Quarterly Goals,
Okay.
right? So the first book is
Yes.
30, 60, 90. It's like your first 90 days at a company. And then it goes into quarterly goals, right? What are quarterly goals? Why do companies create them? And, more humor and more life advice and another 90 comic strips to enjoy.
That's friggin' awesome.
Nice. Oh, that's so. I can't wait
Congratulations,
for
man.
the
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
So, our last question before we play our this or that game with
This or
you.
that. Yeah.
Oh, and I peeped the joke about the syndicate. I submitted a syndicate. That was funny. I think I kind of went over some heads there, but
Oh, it
I
definitely went over mine. Sorry.
How do you think creativity helps reshape the perception of payroll as a strategic or human-centered function?
Oh gosh. Got deep on me,
Yeah.
Jim. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, that's good. It is deep. I think it kind of goes back to where, we sort of started this, where I think the strong perception is that payroll is very numbers based, very black and white, and that's it.
Mhm.
And other than Walt,
Uh,
a lot of people who have joined the payroll world, I think you'll find are creative outside of payroll. Maybe they wanted to be a musician, maybe they wanted to be an artist, maybe they wanted to be a writer, you know, Brian's got an incredible radio voice. Maybe they always wanted to be,
Thanks. Thank you.
a podcaster. So
Clients
whatever it
for
is, there's so much creativity, I think, in the payroll world, which I don't think that that's a mistake. I think it is very reflective of what actually happens. I've seen so much creativity with deadlines coming up, having to get things out the door, make things work when they shouldn't. You're up against a minute. working with different agencies, trying to use existing earning codes to mirror
Oh
something
God.
that just kind of popped up, different deductions code. How do you get people paid the difference of something?
Yeah.
There's so much creativity, I think, in this area, um, that I just can't help but think that people who work in this industry, anytime they see something creative, I think it excites them.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think the more we put it out there, it's not just for the people that exist in the industry. I think it will attract people who don't exist in the industry because they think, again, oh, that's just a black and white numbers organization, right? They just pay
Yeah.
people. There's no real excitement there, but that's not true. There's so much excitement, right? And it is tied to who we are as
Yes.
people, and it's tied to livelihood, right? And I think people who work here are super creative, and
Mhm.
I think we'll inspire more creative people to join us. And so going back to your question, and I hope I answered it. I probably rambled a little bit.
No, love it,
Um,
love it.
what does all of these creative outputs do? I hope it inspires more people to think about joining the payroll industry.
Hey, it's Bob Pulver, host of Q Podcast. Human-centric AI, AI-driven transformation, hiring for skills and potential, dynamic workforce ecosystems, responsible innovation. These are some of the themes my expert guests and I chat about, and we certainly geek out on the details. Nothing too technical. I hope you check it out.
Yes,
Awesome.
I agree, and vice versa. Like I want to see more payroll folks show what their outlets are and their creativity is about, and I don't think I feel like sometimes we maybe they just don't have an outlet or feel like they can share it. Because I love what you said about you got to just put your work out there. My
Yeah.
youngest is an artist, and there's times that she deletes something or rips, and I'm like, "No, don't do that. Don't, it's so good." She's like, "I don't like it." And I was like, "No, but it's good still. Give it to me." Like I get so mad when she destroys something that she
Yeah.
created
Yeah,
because she doesn't like it. And it just made me think of that. And what I'm doing is like I'm secretly collecting it all, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
put it in a little scrapbook and just keep it going for myself because she
amazing.
leaves little things around, and I'm like, "This is so amazing." And yeah, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
and Walt too. I push Walt constantly to like feed that creativity. He's the creative more between the
Super
two of us, right? And if I may, Walt is going to be publishing a book soon, bit of an
Yeah.
autobiography, and
Mhm.
I can't, yes, it's going to give you all the feels, man. That'll be
Yeah.
coming out. He's got I don't know, do you still have your SoundCloud with the music? The
Yeah. Yeah. It's out
SoundCloud.
there.
He
Yeah.
he he's the
That's,
one that created, like, when we used to put the little intro in the beginning, he did the music.
cool.
Yeah, so, like, you
yeah.
gotta be able to have that outlet, and I think that's important.
Yeah. I think going back to what Jim said, I think I kind of want to jump on that, piggyback on that too, Jim. I wanted to inspire folks. And I think sometimes why some people don't step out more is because they don't want to, nobody wants to get rejected.
Yes.
Nobody wants to get clowned or anything like that. I think that fear
Hmm.
could be so great for some people that they just say, I'm gonna just stay in my lane and just do payroll and not put themselves out there.
Yeah.
And hopefully seeing creators like yourself and like us and others that are out there. There's so many people that are so creative. Max,
Oh,
that are
Yeah,
so
Max is so
I
creative.
funny.
gotta
Like,
hear his comedian. I haven't heard the comedian stuff yet, so that I gotta ask him about that.
yeah, like, but if we just step out there and do it, I think the community, that's what I love about the payroll community. We're always there for each other and we're always bigging each other up and rooting each other on. So I'm hoping that it does the same thing for others and just kind of gives people that courage to just bet on themselves and just put it out there.
Yeah.
It's the best bet you
It's
can make.
just,
I'm looking at
yeah,
your Instagram page now, so it's awesome.
Oh,
Yep. This is great.
yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
Gonna be in the show notes.
I think you're also a great example of that evolution of kind of stepping out. Because when we first started this, right, it was the we were audio only for the first like 40 something episodes,
Yeah.
And then it was Gerard Hall that said, "Guys, can you do YouTube, man? Because this is ridiculous." And I was
Love
Short it.
Gerard.
yeah, sure. Oh
Short
yeah,
the episode.
shorten the shows and YouTube. And we were like, all right, we'll try. And then finally we did, because he was on early. I think he was our first guest early on, and
Yeah,
it took
he
us
was.
another like almost a year to do it. And Walt was very like, "Oh man, I don't know." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "We're putting ourselves out there, more vulnerable." And I was like, "We're already talking. What do you mean? Because they see
Yep.
our face." So
Yeah.
right, and
Yep.
so it's been an evolution for him to keep putting himself out there,
Mhm.
and look, Jim, again, thanks for the great comments, because that's our currency right now. I mean, it's always been our currency, right? This is not life-changing money. We still do payroll for a living, and we bootstrap this, and sometimes we get sponsors, sometimes we don't, and it's all good because it doesn't matter. Like, we do it regardless, and
Yeah.
that's been our currency, is just folks saying, "Keep doing it. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're doing something amazing for the community," and we hear it, and we always hear it like right when we need to hear it. You know what I mean? It's like right when we need
Yeah.
to get paid, we get paid. And it comes in that form, really. And I'll send stuff to Walt, he'll send stuff to me, and we'll be like, "Oh my God, this is great." And
Yeah.
it just keeps us going. So we really appreciate that. So that's
Love
it.
it.
Yeah, let's end it off on a good note with this or that. Well, you'll do the first three, and I'll end it off.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So I don't know if you like either one of these things. You could say neither, you could say both, one or the other, whatever. So I don't know if you like the first either of these cuisines, but barbecue or Mediterranean.
Ooh. I mean, they're both phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to choose. It's
Yeah. I mean, I love them both. I mean, huge foodie. Absolutely love,
Oh, okay. So then
both.
you're not, yeah, you can't ask
Yeah.
Booty to
It'd
choose.
be hard.
Yeah.
Okay, got them. All right. Do you prefer teaching or learning?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I mean, lifelong student. I absolutely love learning, but I get a real energy from teaching.
Yep.
It's so
Yeah.
much fun to get information out there and help people, and hope you're inspiring folks. So if I could only do one, probably teaching.
Mhm.
Okay.
But I think they go hand in hand, to be honest.
Yes.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're good, right? If
Yeah,
you're good.
that's for sure. I
If
think I had
you're
a couple
good.
teachers that didn't learn
Oh
anything.
God. Those are the worst.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
you gotta learn, right? You should be learning to be a better teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah,
100%.
you're exactly right. I mean, let's not get into the public school system right now. I tell my son, I'm like, I'm so sorry for you right now, because like this experience
Oh
sucks.
my
I'm
God.
serious. I told him, I was like, I
Yeah.
hope to get you into private school one day. He's like, "No, I don't want to leave my friends and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Nah, man," because the experience for me when I was in public school was amazing. Right now, it's shitty. Anywho, go ahead. Well, last number 3.
That's our next
Yeah,
episode.
for real.
First
All right.
public school.
Yes. So Calvin and Hobbes or Garfield?
Calvin and Hobbes, 100%. Bill Watterson, just absolutely incredible artist.
Those are comic strips, right?
Absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal artist. But Jim Davis, Garfield, I mean, you can't knock, what he did for the industry, and just, how important that cat is to folks. But
Iconic.
my tastes, Bill Watterson and, Calvin and Hobbes.
Dope.
Gotcha. All right.
Atlanta Braves or
Right.
Atlanta Falcons?
I'm from New Jersey.
No doubt. Boom.
So neither.
No doubt. Where'd you get Atlanta
But I
from?
will
Well,
say,
do you live in Georgia now?
I do.
Oh,
I
okay,
do,
that's
yeah.
why.
You're- I
I
wasn't
will
there from
say,
that
No,
part.
no, it's good.
the Braves stadium, so much fun. The Battery,
Oh,
they did a
really?
great job. I
Gotta
think the
go
Atlanta
check that
Braves
one day.
stadium is top notch.
Oh, okay. My brother-in-law's in
that sense,
Post.
I would say Braves over Hawks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literally like 10, 12 minutes from
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
The Battery.
Oh, so we
Yeah.
gotta go
It's
catch a
amazing.
game.
Let me know. Let's catch a game.
Yeah,
That sounds
that'd be
great.
dope. Yeah. Weekly payroll or bi-weekly payroll?
Weekly.
Yeah.
Ooh,
really?
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, please.
When you talk about the early days. So when we started Check, one of the things we were doing was running our own payroll. We're like, the best way to be an embedded payroll provider would be to run your own payroll,
No
right?
doubt.
And we were like, we should pay ourselves as much as possible. So let's go weekly so we can learn as quick as possible, make as many mistakes as
Ooh, fail
possible, as
fast.
fast as possible. Yeah. And to this day, we still pay ourselves still weekly. And
Wow.
I always think weekly is great. But I know
Wow.
biweekly is the most prolific frequency people use.
What I forget what I was writing it for, but I said bi-weekly is like the sweet spot for kind of the compromise, right?
Yeah.
Because it's better for payroll folk to not be running payroll every week. Because I feel like you'd never get proactive if you're constantly just processing, right? It takes you a few days and then the aftermath and then boom, you're back at it again.
Right back into it. Yeah.
So you need really two people, and can you have two people, and can they switch out? I don't know. That's just my take on it. So biweekly allows for a one person, right? And you can process 1 week, and unless you have bosses that are like, well, what are you going to do on the off week?
The off week.
Yeah, right. Oh gosh, why don't I just be part time? I'll just work on payroll weeks if you want, because you
Yeah.
can do that too, and then you'll see real quick what I do on those off weeks. Last one: Excel or Google Sheets.
Oh, geez. I probably get killed for this. I know the industry, everybody loves Excel, and I should say Excel.
One loves
but,
Google Sheets.
I use
Yeah.
Sheets. I have no problem with it.
It's amazing. It's so easy to share.
So easy to share.
Others, it's just
I
like
just get annoyed because I want to do the Excel stuff. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
Yeah.
That's really my only annoyance, is that I don't know what the functions are. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just like forget it. I'm going back to Excel.
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same. Honestly, in my opinion.
This is what we get every time. He's like, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. I can't do this and I can't do. Come on,
I said pretty much.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Jim. Man, it's been so awesome having you on. Thank you so much for helping us out with Payla. Again, like when Jim reached out, we were like, Jim, we don't make any money, man. We can't pay you anything. He's like, no,
Right.
just it's all right, it's fine. And I was
Just
like, all
tighten
right,
some
thanks.
strips up. Yeah. We'll
Yeah,
make it clean.
exactly. That's it. He brings that human touch to AI, because a lot of. So now here's the last one though. Before I let you,
Yeah. Let's do it.
Do artists get? How do you feel about AI as an artist? Because you came from a time where there was no AI.
Sure.
Now there's AI. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. It's not something I go out of my way for, right? AI art, it is what it is. I think I'm pretty good at actually telling when, something is done by AI art. In general, I love human art. I think one of the reasons we love art is because somebody put time into it, right? Like
Mhm.
that energy, that story is something that's connected to what you're looking at
Okay.
versus
get
AI. It could scratch an itch, right? I think AI art is McDonald's, right?
Mhm.
It's,
Okay.
sometimes it's gonna meet the need. You can't live off of it.
Can't live off-
It's
yeah.
it's not gonna be as good as a
Yeah.
steak dinner.
No doubt. No doubt. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. All right. Well, folks, so until the next time we have Jim on, go check out links will be in the show notes to his Instagram and his Amazon for his book. And we look out for the next one coming out. Let us know so we can drop that. And yeah, man, thanks you so much, man. Good
Thank
luck
you
with
guys.
everything.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it. This was great.
Heck yeah, always. Well, you want to end us off on this quote of the day?
Yeah. So the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today.
No doubt.
All right.
No doubt. Till the next time, folks, we love you. Peace.